Prognoz presents Prognoz macroprudential stress testing. The solution is designed for national banks and enables you to estimate the impact of macroeconomic crisis on individual banks and a country's banking sector as a whole. The approaches used by the solution satisfy the recommendations of the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision and the International Monetary Fund. Prognoz macroprudential stress testing enables you to perform stress testing of the banking sector in 5 simple steps. Stage 1 enables you to prepare balance sheet data in the form of a special XLS template provided with the solution and load it into the system. The system supports macroeconomic data and balance sheet data provided by commercial banks to national banks on a regular basis. Macroeconomic data is loaded to the system from open IMF dictionaries. The system supports balance sheets provided by commercial banks on a regular basis that can be loaded by users. The system supports quarterly data. To load data, use the integrated data import tools. By default, users load data into an XLS template. The data is loaded by quarters and contains the following indicators: assets, including deposits with the central bank, nostro accounts, cash, and extended loans, as well as liabilities and capital, including provisions for losses, private and corporate deposits, and so on. The number of sheets in a file corresponds to the number of banks. Each sheet contains a table with the indicators of the corresponding bank. The name of the sheet corresponds to the bank's name. Automated data loading from the customer's data sources is possible as an additional service. Once you have filled in the XLS template, launch the integrated data loader. Select the file whose data is to be loaded into the system. Once the data is loaded, you can view the data as a table or chart and change the report parameters, such as the selected set of banks. You can also print and export data to external file formats. Macroeconomic data is loaded for the indicators used in the product as scenario parameters, such as oil prices, foreign investments, GDP, consumer price index, unemployment rate, public expenditures, money stock, export, import, national currency exchange rate. The list of indicators used as scenario parameters can be extended as an additional service. The system supports quarterly data. You can view and edit data in a table or chart form, print data, and export data to external file formats. Stage 2 enables you to define the macroeconomic parameters of the stress scenario. The system enables you to perform stress testing based on an unlimited number of scenarios. Currently, the system includes 3 scenarios: optimistic, pessimistic, and stress scenario. You can add, delete, edit, and rename scenarios. To create a scenario, define stress changes for the desired macroeconomic indicators selected from the list of predefined indicators. You can select any set of parameters. The homepage enables you to select the required scenario parameters in real time. Once the parameters are selected, define the stress deviations that will be automatically applied to the entire forecasting period. Advanced tools for creating scenarios are available under the Scenarios tab. This tab provides tools that enable you to create manual and model-based scenarios. To create a manual scenario, switch to the Manual tab and manually set the deviations of the parameters for the forecasting period on a quarterly basis. Then use the chart to define the deviations for each scenario parameter. The chart also enables you to view the periods for which historical data is available and define the forecast period. The top part of the window contains a bar from which you can select the required scenario parameter. Let us define a scenario for GDP. Use the mouse to define parameter values for each period. Once the changes are made, you can view the data in table and chart form. The model-based method implies the use of the integrated autoregression model. This model enables you to assess the mutual impact of macroeconomic indicators and use the calculation results as scenario parameters. Thus, the scenarios developed in the system are based on the analysis of data and changes to the macroeconomic indicators during the previous periods. You can also assess the mutual impact of changes to the macroeconomic indicators in real time. For example, you can assess how the changes to the volume of export impact the GDP. Detailed model customization is available elsewhere in the system. Another way to create a manual scenario is to use the Presets Period tab that uses the data on the changes of indicators over the previous periods. To use this method, select the desired macroeconomic indicator, define the start date of the sample period, and select the number of calculation periods and average stress deviation of the indicator in the future. This method enables you to model changes to the scenario parameter over time according to the data of the previous period. After the system saves the data, you can use the model for calculation. Stage 3 enables you to edit the integrated economic and mathematical models and calculate the stress test. To launch the stress test calculation, click the Calculate button under any tab of the system. Use the Methodology tab to view and edit the integrated economic and mathematical models. The Methodology tab displays a flowchart of the models. As shown in the flowchart, the first stage defines the shocks for the macroeconomic indicators used as scenario parameters. You can complete this stage manually or using model-based methods. In the next stage, the banking sector model estimates the impact of the defined macroeconomic shocks on the country's banking sector. Then, the distribution model breaks the shocks down to individual banks with regard to the bank's risk appetite. As at this stage, bank assets and liabilities are adjusted independently. It is often the case that assets and liabilities are unbalanced. To solve this problem, refer to the balance sheet model. In the final stage, the Prudential and Supervisory Indicators model calculates the analytical indicators defined by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision and the International Monetary Fund, including regulatory capital or risk-weighted assets, economic capital requirements, liquidity and funding gaps, and so on. The product contains all necessary tools that enable you to view and edit the aforementioned models. For example, in a country's autoregression model, you can edit the set of endogenous and corresponding exogenous parameters to comply with the characteristics of the selected country. As you work, other dependencies and statistical characteristics of the model change automatically. As mentioned before, the banking sector model enables you to model the impact of the macroeconomic shocks on the banking sector using regression equations. Specifically, solution models, non-performing loans, corporate accounts, corporate and individual deposits, and securities. These indicators reflect the main stress events of the banking sector. In these equations, you can change the set of macroeconomic indicators that influence the model banking indicators, change the dependency type, and view forecast as a table or chart. Let us change the set of factors that impact the amount of non-performing loans in the banking sector. The system automatically recalculates the statistical characteristics and refreshes the forecast. A similar instrument is available in the distribution model and balance sheet model. The Prudential and Supervisory Indicators model includes a series of prudential indicators of the banking sector and tools that enable you to edit these indicators. The integrated tools enable you to add new indicators, including defining formulas for new indicators and edit existing indicators. If necessary, you can customize the integrated models and indicators. Stage 4 includes the assessment of the results of the stress test. To analyze the results of stress testing in real time, use the predefined dashboards and reports available on the Start page. Go to the Start page to view the losses of the banking sector, including total losses, market risk losses, credit risk losses, and key aggregated indicators of the banking sector, such as equity, cash, non-performing loans, securities, and others. In the bottom part of the window, you can group banks by the financial state defined during stress testing. Currently, the chart shows that at the beginning of the stress testing period, no banks were in the state of bankruptcy. By the end of the stress testing period, 3 banks are in this state due to the increased macroeconomic shock. The system enables you to view a list of bankrupt banks and analyze their statements. The start page also contains a chart that shows the banks with the greatest losses according to results of the test. This report enables you to select the desired indicator and period. The chart is changed according to the selected data. Another report available on the start page displays selected indicator values for different banks. Currently, you see a chart that ranks the banks according to the deviation of equity based on the results of the test. To customize the report, you can select the desired indicators and periods. The right part of the window displays Prudential indicators that describe the general condition of the banking sector based on the results of the test. Depending on the value, the indicators change colors. Red means the indicator significantly exceeds the limit values. Yellow shows a slight deviation from the norm, and green means that the indicator value is within the norm. You can change the limit values for any Prudential indicator and use the values proper to the country to which the stress test is applied. Stage 5. The final stage enables you to prepare reports on the results of stress testing for senior management. To prepare these reports, use one of the predefined reports under the Reports tab. You can print the reports and export them to external file formats such as Doc, XLS, and PDF. The first 2 reports enable you to view data loaded into the system for stress testing such as macroeconomic data and balance sheet data. The remaining 4 reports deliver the results of the stress testing. The Macroeconomic Stress Parameters report enables you to view data on macroeconomic indicators used by the system as scenario indicators. Notably, you can view user-developed scenarios for indicators such as oil prices, foreign direct investment, GDP, consumer price index, and so on, as a table or chart. The stress test calculation results contain data on the results of stress testing for each separate layout. For example, you can analyze how the balance sheet data of the selected bank changes with time under different scenarios. The bank state distribution report contains data on the ranking of the banks depending on their financial soundness defined under stress testing. Banks with a stable financial condition are shown in green. Banks subject to technical default are shown in yellow, and bankruptcies are shown in red. The comparative analysis of banks report contains detailed stress testing results. This report enables you to change the report structure. Apply visualization tools to the report that contains data on the changes of the equity value under a stress scenario to create a report in which this data is shown under all available scenarios. The equity indicator is available in the sidebar. You can print and export reports available in the system to external file formats.